I am here, even
Oh,
if
you've not shown up on my podcast. Oh,
I know it doesn't show up in my. It doesn't show up that I'm listening either or whatever. So I go,
very
oh, this is
bizarre.
like that one time. Remember the when we couldn't see
Oh, yes.
anyone, and yeah. So I just figured I would let you know before we
Well,
sat here awkwardly for
as
because I
we were
miss
doing.
you.
This is a great time to remind people that this podcast, The Grain Blast, is recorded live and no editing. So perfect
Right? Yeah.
segue. Uh,
Surprise.
as As usual, everybody, you join myself, Ryan, and the awesome goddess of grain, Angie, where Angie will be providing us with a rapid roundup of the latest pricing flows and market moving news in agricultural markets. But before we get underway, I've already reminded everyone, if it wasn't obvious already, that these are recorded live with no editing. And also that nothing discussed on the podcast is trading or investment advice or endorsements, yada, yada, yada. And a special welcome to everyone from your side of the pond
Right.
to wish you, I hope everyone had a marvelous Thanksgiving, including, especially you.
I did. I had a great Thanksgiving. I did little to nothing. We were supposed to go on a trip, but we had that snowstorm come in, and we erred on the side of caution. We weren't going to get stuck on a highway here in a snowstorm. So, yeah, we stayed home and I had plentiful food and naps, which is just exactly what I need because I'm like a baby, basically.
Well, I felt exactly
Newborn
the same.
infant.
I felt exactly the same, and there was no Thanksgiving on this side. So, yeah, I feel you.
That's fine. What's your favorite pastime? Napping, honestly. So, yeah, welcome back. I said this last night to Carl, kind of out of the blue. It was one of those streams of consciousness that just comes out of your mouth. I was like, 3 more weeks of hard work, and then it's the holidays. And so, yeah, I'm going to tell you all the same thing. 3 more weeks of hard work, and it's the holidays. So, you at least have to buckle down for the next 2 weeks, at least. Like, you can't be like, oh, that's next year's problem, last half December maybe, but here we are. So, the kind of big points I was making notes before we jumped in here today because I'm out of practice. I feel like oh golly me, I don't know how to do this anymore. But we're obviously paying attention to continued like data updates, continued demand
Yeah.
updates is what I wrote, but it's mostly data updates. Like one of the big things that we saw last week in the middle of the week was an update on the CFTC, the Commitment of Traders data from the middle of October. And so remember all the times I've said, I like the CFTC data because I want to see what the commercial's doing. Like that is to me, like the speculator, everyone, like they get all of the attention and everyone wants to see what the funds are doing, but I like the commercial data because that tells me how they're positioned. Is the farmer aggressively selling? Is the end user purchasing? Like, are you seeing them go longer? Are you seeing them go shorter for the week? Those types of things. And obviously, if the commercial is shorter or showing significant selling on the week, that means that they're buying a lot from the farmer because they're hedging and vice versa. And so one of the things that we saw basically in the update from last week that was interesting in corn and just kind of continues to compound the whole entire idea of holy cow, we may have a lot more demand, or at the very least, we have a very strong underpinning of demand underneath this market that people may have underestimated or have been underestimating. Part of the bear story in corn is, well, demand's as big as it's going to get and it has to be cut. And so to see in the middle of October, gut slot harvest is what we call it. That's when, you should be seeing the majority of grain moving in. The farmers should be aggressively pricing. The commercial was long, like a record long futures, which means the commercial had a lot sold, a lot priced, a lot marketed that they didn't have bought at the very least, or that the farmer was not pricing or the farmer wasn't, really actively engaged. And so those are just it is an interesting dynamic to me in the sense that, obviously the price got cheap enough that folks around the world were getting engaged. That's both domestically and, globally. And so that was of interest. That was something that really caught my attention. And so we'll continue to watch that I think we get another update. You'll have to tell me. I was trying to find the schedule real quick before we jumped on and I missed it. I was mostly just so mad when they said that it was going to take 17 years to get caught up that I stopped. And it's kind of, I'm like a child. Like I just said, this is the second reference of me being a child. But in that regard, I was a child. I was like, to hell with it. I'm not even going to pay attention.
Right, exactly.
And so, like, we'll see how that kind of continues to flow. We did get 2 export sales updates as well. We got one on Friday of last week and one this morning. So we are working our way. We're up to October 23rd for the export sales side of things. And the one on Friday really caught my attention simply because the corn number was so massive. 2.8 million metric tons of corn was sold on the week. I mean, that's a huge number for corn ever in any week that I can really remember. Like we're harkening back to the China purchases of time. We haven't seen those types of numbers since China came in, and China's not in. Like mind you, like going through the things because we got an update this morning as well. It was less a wowie, it was 1.8 million metric ton of corn, which historically that is really strong for the middle of October from an export sales sort of standpoint. And so if you look at the overall corn program, we are still running, significantly ahead of last year, 9.5 million metric tons, almost 10 million metric tons ahead of last year on
Right.
corn sales. That's 390 million bushels with the USDA not really expecting that level of increase at this point in time. On the who is making the purchases side of things, it's not just one group. It's a whole, levy of folks that we've worked with historically and folks that we haven't necessarily worked with in a big way. And so that's one of the things that I continue to watch when looking specifically at corn, is that we're really the only game in town still for a while. So like we're this far ahead as of the 1st of December, and I really don't see us losing the market share or our competitive nature until we get closer to the end of March or April.
Okay.
So we're talking another 3 months potentially of just big corn demand. Now, logistically, we're getting a little tapped out. Like you're seeing it, we have seen. I don't want to get away from this demand sort of thing yet because we did see soybean sales start to pick up. We haven't seen China come in yet. We're not to the China meeting, like they're still at zero. But we did see soybean sales come in at a marketing year high. Now, relatively speaking, that's still nothing exciting because we're lagging about 10 million metric ton from a year ago in soybeans. But, we are seeing, as I was saying, logistically, we're a little maxed out here. Like China has come in, they've bought around 35% of the 12 million metric ton they have to buy. The majority of what they're going to take is going to be done in December and in January. December from a logistical capacity, like I said, tapped. January is getting that way. Like, good luck if you don't have freight booked in the West to go to the PNW. I don't know if you're going to get it much before February at this point in time. Like, we are seeing significant signs that demand is really solid, but we're also seeing signs that it's really covered on the front end, which shouldn't
Right.
come as a surprise. And so we'll just kind of continue to watch how deferred basis, at least in my opinion, trades. Like a lot of folks are going to be watching the front end, which is fine. But let's remember, I just said it, we have 2 weeks of work left in the year, basically. Like no one is aggressively doing much of anything to shift this month. And at this point, they're really not going to aggressively do much to ship at the start of next month either. If it comes to you, I'm going to buy it. It's going to be a no-brainer. Or if it comes to me, I'm going to sell it. It's going to be a no-brainer. And that's basically how merchandisers are going to operate, for the next little bit here. So we'll continue to watch that. The other thing that has my attention is wheat. Everyone kind of continues to talk about like no demand in wheat, but we're running 3 million metric ton ahead of last year on wheat sales through the third week of October here. And so that's something that also just has my attention, simply because we have good quality wheat. Wheat has been under pressure. A lot of people want to say it's peace talk this, peace talk that. I don't think we've really seen much in the way of any type of progress on the peace talks. Like, I think the same hang-ups are there. I think we're ignoring some important things or whatever. I think wheat's really under pressure because of the Argentina crop size continues to get bumped up. Like, basically in my notes, it's 11 bajillion tons at this point. Like, it's just infinite. The wheat crop is infinite. And in reality, it's just 25 to 26 million metric ton. But, Argentina is going to have a couple 100 million extra bushels of wheat or whatever. That's pressuring the market.
Right.
Sounds like it's a lot of feed wheat. And then we have Australia. They just bumped up the Australian wheat crop estimates as well. And so, on the wheat side of things, we're still seeing significant demand for U.S. wheat. We're still offering into the world. Yeah, we're more expensive, but we're able to meet the quality specs and we're able to ship it when you want us to. And so we can command a premium to a certain extent, especially when the rest of the world is kind of awash in lower quality supplies. And so that's it. That's kind of, a roundabout of like what we're paying attention to on the demand side of things, moving over into factors at hand. I did touch on the peace talk thing. I want to get your opinion on
Oh,
what took place with the Ukraine attacking these like we had two shadow fleet.
Yeah.
members of the Shadow Fleet, right, get taken out this weekend. Is
Yeah.
this new, or is this kind of like, is this like, does this make anyone nervous from shipping overall
I
here?
think,
Is this just a
yeah, I think well, again, this is only my personal view, but it does feel like, again, we've spoken a few times about what were kind of seen as red lines and boundaries for
yeah,
these attacks, were that we've seen them slightly be kind of, you know, gone over those lines, including kind of hitting port infrastructure and stuff. And I do believe directly attacking the Shadow Fleet is something that we've not seen before, even at the worst parts of the war. And also, I think it just, it increases the scope of what is being attacked in terms of geography as well, because you got this Russian tanker off of, what was it, off the coast of Senegal or wherever it was, that that all of a sudden is kind of sinking, and no one knows why, but everyone's pointing to kind of some suspicious activity by Ukrainians. And I think, maybe they've just had enough. They're like, look, they've got these kind of, the EU's on their like 19th, 20th sanctions package now. The dark fleet still operates. This take matters into our own hands and just say, look,
yeah.
you've got the unofficial, quote unquote embargoes and whatnot, but they're just not working because of these shadow fleet. Why don't we just take those boats out of action? And that's something we haven't seen, and it is it directly impacts Putin's pockets. So absolutely, I think it's an escalation.
Yeah, and I feel like to see them hit with no, I can't say it. That big port, they hit a big port.
Yeah, I know the one.
And a big port. It starts with an N and it has several R's in it, I think. And I lose count. It's like my brain just glosses. But you hit that port, and no, right now, from what we're looking at, it looks like you're going to see a continuation of relatively strong Russian export demand. But if we get 2 weeks ahead of time here and we haven't seen a resolution, if these peace talks kind of fail to, solve the issue or get us to a ceasefire, it's going to bring into question, or at the very least, you're going to see some folks. I still think you're seeing it to a certain extent, where it's like, okay, if I need to book my February needs, and where am I gonna book them from? Like Russia makes me a little nervous, but it's super cheap, so maybe that's it. But it's just gonna be something that I'm watching, because I don't think we have the progress that I feel like to a certain extent Ukraine is going through the steps. They know that they need to. They need to kind of be like, yes, this 28 points is a little too much, but 19 will take. Like, we want to, and we've seen this from Zelensky since February or March. We want peace. Like, we want to get there, but we can't cross these lines. And you knew that the plan released a couple of weeks ago crossed several of Ukraine's lines. And
Yeah.
so we'll have to see kind of how that works out. Now, there are a lot of other things going on. Like, you had Zelensky's chief of staff targeted in a big corruption scandal. Like, his office was raided here
Yeah.
over the weekend.
Oh, there's been a huge. This has been a huge graft scandal. Whether it's like number two, and the thing is as well, this doesn't bode well. Because belts are being tightened, especially in the EU and in Europe, and that was kind of where a lot of money was flowing from. So it creates domestically for European nations, EU nations, it makes it far more difficult to just write these blank checks.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of messes, like in
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
whole thing. But I think this idea that Ukraine's going to sign off on giving up Donbass, and, they've already said they're open to the military thing. They've already, like NATO, I think, is a red line that they're not willing to give up either, though it depends on the security agreements. I mean, there's just a lot of factors at play there that we have to pay attention to. But, I think if we don't see a resolution, you're going to see some pretty, we're to the point, where it's like, I don't even want to say, like, where it's like, we got to end this one way or
Yeah.
the other. Like, and so you're going to continue to see these big escalations, more than likely, that are really going to target, like, instead of the sanction stuff, we're just going to start taking it in our own hands, like you said.
Yeah.
And then what does Russia do to respond to that? And so, yeah, that'll be one of the biggest things we're watching. I'm also going to be paying attention to what's going on in China,
Uh-huh.
specifically with grains. Their grain stocks have my attention in a big way. Like, we've heard China has been buying some sorghum, milo, and has been bringing that in, or has been, there are some shipments setting sail for them. But we have heard this morning, like, southern port stocks had been relatively elevated, or at least been in line, if not slightly above the 5-year average. They've dipped below that here this month, this week, whatever. Northern port stocks are significantly lower as well. You have seen some uptick in farmer selling because China's corn prices have rallied since the middle of October. So you've seen a bit in the way of more farmer selling that has helped, but all eyes are on China. Like I think
Yeah.
we're seeing eyes of what happened last fall. And I've been talking about this like since the end of September, the beginning of October, right? Like the amount of rain that they had, the damage that they saw, the problems that they have, but now a lot of it seems to be coming to a head. And in addition, China has not been importing much in the way of feed grains for the last couple, 3 years. Like this wasn't a trade war thing that they didn't, like they stopped importing corn and wheat last year in a big way, really over the last couple of years. And so their supplies are down overall. And so we'll kind of continue to watch that, especially with some concern over what's going on in Brazil when it comes to some potential replanting, some big heat, some, planting soybeans out of the optimal window. It's not anything that, I think is super bullish as a whole, but we're definitely going to need to kind of keep an eye on how this whole entire season progresses because we do not have room for a hiccup in corn production out of Brazil or Argentina, and both right now are kind of open to it. So yeah, as a whole, we'll just be watching to see what happens with peace talks. We're supposed to be getting two big week this week, guys. If you believe it, we will be getting the farmer bailout package
Fingers
announcement,
crossed.
supposedly, and we'll see what the administration comes up with on that one. And we're supposed to get the China trade deal put together. So I'm not going to write that. That's not written in ink on my bullet points. That's just what the administration promised. But other than that, it's it's a Monday. You have two weeks to work real hard. 2.5. I said 3
Yeah.
at the start, but we all know that's a lie.
Exactly.
And we'll see what happens as we work our way to the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, Angie, thank you so much for the update. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in as per usual. Yeah, and whatever you're doing, keep it tight, stay safe, and stay tuned tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see what the day brings. Have
Fingers
a good
crossed it's
one.
something.